Okay, good morning. I hope this time is better, although seems like there's still some drop in frames here and there, but nothing we can do about this. Okay, I just want to see if there's at least some sound. Okay, let's see. Test, test, test. Good morning, Mr. DK. I just want to make sure that the sound is good. If the sound is not choppy, just the audio, I'm sorry, the video, then it's fine. Ojin, good morning. Beautiful. Perfect. Okay. As we mentioned in Wales, the next couple of weeks is going to be the weeks of governance, ghostDAO governance in particular. Let me just give you some points. Oh, thank you, Mr. K. It's all good. Let me give you some points regarding how we are looking at this governance and what are there some like are there any issues or not. So, as we remember, we placed some aggressive deadlines for ourselves, right, to try to finish everything end of January, definitely by end of March of this year. What do you mean by everything? So that means bridging. That means which is already done. That means ghostDAO governance, and it also means um, the P ghost, meaning GMV, tokenomics, and user interface, if anything. So now, of course, we had a call and last week with the council, and not sorry, last year with the council, and what has been communicated, like in large strokes, broad strokes, is the fact that like we can literally launch like whenever, right? Like the mainnet launch could have happened mid-December, end of December. It can happen next week. Now, why is that the case? Like just to kind of reiterate, the reason why the launches could be accelerated significantly is because pretty much all the backend is finished. So now the question is about customization. And when it comes down to the customization is not like shall not be coming from the team, shall be coming from the community, right? So now if the community understands exactly what's happening, then they could tell us, which uh, parameters to select, right, for various products, and then launch with those specific parameters. But the backend is done using the best practices from the Web3 space, right? So it's already finished. Now the customization is the details, and devil is in the details. And then it's like it's kind of on everybody, every single whale who is listening to this call, every single whale who is not listening to this call, every single council, every single non-council, every single ghost member. It's really on you guys to figure out if you want further customization. Now, if you don't want any customization and you are okay with the existing stack, which is, by the way, well, I wouldn't say it's state of the art. Not everything is state of the art there, but it's very solid. It's extremely solid from Web3 perspective. Stuff is audited. Stuff is because we've been, re how to say well, we have not been forking, but we've been reverse engineering the code base for certain features, right? Because there's so many features. Like, for example, like just a quick idea, like we're not gonna like rewrite the library of addition or subtraction, right? Like the library will obviously take that. We're not going to be necessarily redoing governance stack, because governance to some extent has been proven. We'll cover this in more detail today and probably next week as well. But on the governance side of things, like, we can say the current DAOs are not the best and not the most functional, but they do work. They work without any bugs. So again, whoever wants to launch faster can do this already, and that can be done by simply going to our GitHub, git.ghosttrain.io. All the code base is there, and the product can be launched with the user interface, with everything. So everything is there, right? Like literally everything. Now it's about the customizations, about details, and devil is in the details, and it's also majorly about the, like, every single person has to ask themselves, are we ready? Like, am I ready to launch? Meaning, am I ready to accept the possibility of failure? And that is a very serious question. We've been asking this question. The team has been asking this question like every week for the last 4 years that we've been working on this project. So the first version of the bridge has been finished end of 2021. Like it's crazy to me now. Like it's been like 4 years. Like this year is gonna be 5 years. It's crazy. Like time really flies. And we've been asking ourselves the question: are we ready to launch? Meaning, not from technical perspective, from business perspective. Meaning, from adoption perspective, are we ready to launch? And of course, today we definitely look stronger than ever. Whether is this is like whatever the adoption we have right now, is that the ideal adoption? Of course not. But this is the strongest adoption we've had. Like every single month, I would say we have the strongest adoption ever. Like I don't think we like ever go down as far as engagement, right? Like we only going up so far. And I'm talking about like real engagement. I'm not talking about like, oh, before like our tweets would get 200 likes, fine. But how many of those users would actually understand the whole stack, right? Today our likes on tweets is like 30 or 40, right? Somewhere there. However, the number of quality users who are using the stack and understanding the stack is higher than ever, right? So we kind of have to drive through the noise, remove the noise, and focus on what really matters, like the actual KPIs, the actual coefficients, the actual metrics. And of course, lots of these metrics are hard to judge quantitatively because we're not able to collect all the stats. We're not collecting the stats like that on purpose because we have a privacy project. So it's lots of that stuff is pretty qualitative. However, some quantitative data points that show that we have highest adoption than ever is, of course, number of validators who have been consistently with us, number of conversion from one testnet to another testnet, and of course, this is this is not real money. This is like test money still, right? And even with test money, we have pretty good adoption, and thanks to you guys who are listening to us. Now, of course, is this ideal? Like 3 or 4 or 5 people listening to this show? Obviously not. Like obviously not. Like that's not the ideal state. So therefore, every single person needs to ask themselves, like, am I ready to launch? And what do I need to do to decrease, to minimize my probability of failure on the launch? Meaning my own and also therefore for the project. So what do I need to do? What kind of context do I need to like engage in today? For example, like specific one is, well, let me just cut the shit and let's like be very straightforward. Let's assume it's Pulse community, okay? So some members of our group, some Spartans have access to Pulse, some non-Spartans have access to Pulse, some council members, including legacy council members, have access to Pulse community. So to think that the Pulse community, like we can just ping them a month before the launch and say, hey guys, like Pulse, we're going to be live on Pulse, so please support us. And then Pulse community will magically change the fate of ghostDAO. That's extremely naive to think that. The connection, education, kind of brainwashing, if you can say that, right? Like I would say lots of education again, right? Regarding every single aspect of Ghost Bridge must happen yesterday. It has to happen last year. I don't mean 2025. I mean 12 months ago. Like maybe like in September 2024, right? When the first testnet or whatever, like fall 2024, when the first testnet was launched, when the first Casper testnet was launched. That's where the education had to begin. To think that like, oh, we're gonna launch, and like a week after the launch, a week before the launch, we gotta like tell Pulse community, hey, please, everybody, like come in, like you guys can say that, and you can count on it, but that's going to be how to say, you will face the reality. The reality will punch you in the face. Um, how to say, like, it will take months, if not years, for the community of Pulse, for example, to really kind of kind of start using the bridge, to really start using the ghostDAO and stuff like this. Like, such adoption, uh, kind of preparation, it really takes time. It won't happen in a week. It won't happen in a month. It probably won't even happen in 6 months. So, and again, if you think that it's going to happen, you are being naive. So how do we know that? Well, because we got some adoption from Ghost NFT, for example, amongst many chains, and that has, that was sufficiently fast. The connections were not developed over years; they were rather kind of developed over months. But the results were similar. Those connections, like say to Polygon, were very surface. Yeah, we got some coverage. We got added to the ecosystem page. I don't think we are on the ecosystem page of Polygon anymore. I think Polygon is excessively firing people now. So all the contacts we had, I think, fired. So we don't have these contacts anymore. And the adoption has been kind of from users, but then when we look at like what type of users really kind of brought this adoption, it was just independent users. We just got lucky. Like, we got lucky that independent users on Polygon started promoting it themselves, given the incentive program, right? Like, incentive mechanisms that we had. Similar with Binance. With Binance, like, we were not able to get to anybody on the Binance team, on the BNB chain team, ever. We were able to get, thanks to JML Freedom, we were able to get to somebody from the fund of Binance, like from the investment fund. So kind of, they were supposed to have a lot of leverage over the Binance team, but still we didn't get any unfair advantage promotion from the Binance team. Ethereum, forget about it. When we were filing for the ERC 720 on Envious, the standard, we filed it based on all these all the rules. It took us 7 months, and we had to ping them consistently. It took us 7 months to get listed as a standard. Like, for fuck's sake, like, it's a $500 billion project. Like, list us fast. Like, you incentivize to list, new standards. No, it took us like 7 months, literally 7 months. Ethereum Classic, by the way, was faster to add us to the Ghost Faucet page. It took a month and a half or 2 months only. Again, thanks for Avalon's help and Stark help for providing ETC funds. We were able to significantly increase the throughput of how much we can drain, or how much users can drain per one request, and maybe that also impacted it. But like, ask yourself the question: are you ready to launch every single week? If you're ready, you're ready. If you're counting on luck that somebody will come, like somebody else will fix it, you will be up for a surprise. And now the launch is not the panacea. Like, like, in many cases, launch means nothing. Like, in many startups, especially Web2 startups, like, launch is whatever. Like, oh, everybody's celebrating the launch. Like, I could never understood why, like, launch is an important event. It's really not. Because, so what? Like, okay, you launch, so what? Like, nobody knows about you. Like, the mechanics, the logistics, the business flow of the Web2 startup does not depend on the launch much, unless it's involved in some type of network effect, like maybe like Uber or Amazon. And even in this case, it really doesn't like matter much still. In Web3, though, the launch may potentially matter a lot more, because the network effect is so much more part of the entire tokenomics, essentially. So the more users come in earlier, the better, right? And vice versa, right? Because the TVL tends to be drained from projects that look dead, and there is some opportunity cost of holding your TVL with the project, say, goes down versus other projects, and then therefore that's why we're putting so much emphasis on the launch. Although again, the launch is not a panacea. I would still argue that the launch, like maybe the impression of the launch is like 100% of kind of the success. I would probably say it's maybe 5 or 10% of the success, right, of the project, but it's still very significant. Like, post-launch, a lot of work has to be done post-launch as well, including upgrading stuff, right? Like, upgrading user experience based on what users actually using, like with money, right? Therefore, that will be massive user interface work, some additional functions, stuff like this. So Like lots of work has to be done post-launch and maintenance and blah blah blah. But the launch, although 5 to 10% may sound insignificant, it's extremely significant. Like meaning how we should be looking at is every single next milestone we should be treating, and that's what we've been treating it on the team level, as like 1,000% importance. Like if you fuck up the launch, we screwed. Well, after the launch, then the next milestone will be to get maybe I don't know 100 million TVL. Maybe that's going to be the KPI. I don't know, right? So then that's going to be the 1,000% importance. So whatever that milestone is, right? So ask yourself these questions. These are very important questions. If you're counting on somebody else to make it successful, everybody else is also counting on everybody else, and then it's just going to happen how it's going to happen. The team will be pushing obviously on our front, but that may not be enough. Now, of course, we may get lucky because we want a very few projects that has a lot of stuff actually completed, actually done. We definitely have our portion of hopium spread, but we also have our fair portion of stuff developed, and we develop stuff way faster than most other projects. Then probably like, well, I would say the absolute majority of projects, right? Because we like when I say absolute majority of projects, we shall not compare ourselves just to Uniswap or Compound or Aave or Bitcoin. We should compare ourselves to most projects that never fucking launch. Period. Right? Like, kind of, it's kind of sometimes more difficult. Well, all the time more difficult to compare yourself to the top dogs, right? Like again, Monero and in this case Zcash, the whole team left, right? Stuff like this. Like those are successful, substantiated products, right? Projects, products, movements, whatever you're gonna call it, cryptocurrencies, right? But if you could compare ourselves to the whole universe of projects, and then we also compare ourselves to the projects that have similar amount of funding that we got, we are. I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back. There's no point for it, but I would argue we are top 5%, maybe top 1% of all the projects, and that's just an objective evaluation. We're not trying to say, oh, we're better than everybody else. We just say that's objective, right? Because most projects never launch. Most projects raise money, never deliver a single product. Most projects like scam, right? Like users, that's the business model. So from that perspective, we are very top. However, that is again not enough. Because what we top at developing stuff, but the business side of things must be done by everybody. So ask yourself a question: are you ready? Now, the reason why I'm raising this question, kind of this topic in particular, is because we are going towards something very, very important called governance, and that is our motto for the next couple of weeks. As kind of, we did this whole blitzkrieg on Bridging, finished it up. We're probably going to be renovating it. We're probably going to be dismantling lots of features away from the ghostDAO and towards the Ghost Lite. However, again, the Bridging so far, how I would judge Bridging from success perspective, not a single Bridging transaction failed. At least that's from what I know. And I'm sorry for being repetitive, but that is a massive fucking success metric. Not a single Bridging transaction failed in the last iteration of the Bridging. And that's a purely decentralized play. And again, users are doing this with no real money, with test money. And when we look at, I'm not sure if you're going to launch. Not sure if it's going to, oh, it will load. Yeah, so 83%, well, maybe now it's going to drop. So in any case, a significant percentage of validators are active, 83%, that's nice, right? And then here, only these guys, of which these 5, I think, or so, like 5 out of those 7 have been, they have to go a long time ago, right? We have to either integrate the forced chill, or we have to integrate an updated slashing mechanism where it's not just a percentage of Casper that is being slashed. Yesterday we came up with this idea. Maybe it's not just a percentage of the slashing that we should be incurring on the inactive validators, but maybe it's a fixed amount plus percentage. That way, let's assume it's 1 Casper plus percentage. That way, within 7 days, the inactive guys will just disappear. Right, because they probably have a balance of 6.9 Casper, 1 Casper. That's 7 days of that, boom, gone. Right, probably even faster with the percentage. So maybe we have to incorporate fixed plus variable model for the slashing to get rid of this. Maybe we should just integrate forced chill as we discussed on the Ghost Lite. In any case, lots of these things will be dismantled. Most likely, this will be dismantled and moved to the Ghost Lite. This will be moved to the Ghost Lite. It will probably just stick to this one single panel for the bridge. And that's it. and obviously with the hyperlink kind of URL redirect to Ghostlight for those who want to check the stats. But again, we did it fast, and not a single bridging transaction is failing on the bridging, which is absolutely fucking insane. And there have been lots of good additions on the what's it called, on the animation and additional details. So these pop-ups will stay. Okay, now the next thing is ghostDAO governance. That's going to be equally important. We also want to do a blitzkrieg thing and hopefully finish this in the next couple of weeks. Now, the reason why it's not done is because we would like to innovate. Now, we don't have to, but we will potentially be innovating anyways. Those of you who don't want that, take the code from Git and just git.ghostchain.io and just deploy it. Let me explain you the reasons why we would like to innovate. So this bond, and the reason why it's going to be exciting, this bond, lots of you guys don't know how this bond has been created. It has been created by the admin. Not good. This bond will be created going forward. Well, bonds like this, going forward by the governance, by the ghostDAO governance. Okay? So, every single member of the voting committee, and who is on the voting committee? Anybody who has Casper is on the voting committee. Not eCasper, but Casper. You have Casper, boom, you can vote. Congratulations, right? You don't have Casper, you cannot vote. It's as easy as this. No bullshit freaking thresholds, nothing. You have Casper, you're voting. Boom. Right? Because you're voting with your dollar, literally. That's kind of the idea. So we'll be able to create bonds. We also will be able to select APYs. But that's not it. There are a bunch of other functions, and I'll demonstrate them to you today. Maybe we'll have to cover them in more detail next week, because we only have half an hour left. And I had a pretty good introduction here, which is very important. In any case, this APY will also be changing. So now, what are the inspirations for the DAOs? If you are in the space for quite some time or recently, you probably heard that DAOs failed. Lots of these decentralized organizations, not really decentralized, they're pretty freaking centralized. Ask ChatGPT, ask DeepSeek, ask Grok, Google up, go to forums, read the opinions. You will see lots of critique about how these other projects who claim to be decentralized are really not that decentralized. And let me not present real feedback, like my personal opinions. You'll be judging for yourselves. But let's go through, for example, Olympus DAO, right? So Olympus DAO, that's where we take all the inspirations from. Now, we need to be separating early Olympus DAO from late Olympus DAO. Because the more I dive into Olympus, the more I'm realizing how insanely thoughtful the initial architecture has been. And I don't think an idiot would be able to come up with such an architecture unless they got inspired by some other projects, such as, I keep forgetting the name of this stablecoin that has been rebasing both positively and negatively, has been a huge hit, also using the rebase functionality of the token. It was kind of in the same era in early 2021. So unless they got massively inspired from that, it seems like they wrote stuff from scratch. There have been some scientists, and the stuff is like PhD level stuff. Like Satoshi needs to get a Nobel Prize, and maybe Olympus DAO found Zeus, and the team should be getting a Nobel Prize in economics. Like, yeah, it's absolutely fucking insanely complicated, complex, thoughtful. The design is insane. However, the late phase of Olympus has been not necessarily in line with the original one. We're not sure if Zeus and the team is still in the Olympus, right? And we can see this with Berachain. The Berachain guys claim that they, have been, filled with founders of Olympus, and Berachain will be the best chain since sliced bread, and it's fucking not. Like you can look at the price performance and everything else, like it's not. So chances are, what happened is, I could be an early contributor for Olympus DAO by being the guy who changes logos everywhere. And of course, I can use that on my resume saying, hey, well, I changed logos, therefore I'm a contributor for Olympus, and let me raise funds for Berachain. And that's exactly, I think, what happened. Now, of course, I'm not, that's my personal opinion. That's how it seems like. So therefore, like everything we look at here, like this is the current Olympus, like whatever, version 2, version 3, version 4, whatever they have. We need to take with a grain of salt. Specifically, why? Like bridge, right? The bridge, I think it's Axel on the background. This is the bridge. I don't think Zeus would ever use the fucking XLR or Lazy or whoever they have on the background. Why? Because like it's extremely unsafe. It's not Web3. Why? Why use the bridge? Because bridge is a cool feature. So this is not the native bridge. They just integrated like Axla or whatever, one of those, right? To learn more, we can kind of learn more and figure out that it's like one of those like kind of Excel spreadsheet backed fucking things. Again, Zeus would not approve this. I cannot speak on his behalf, but you need to look at the code base and like once you start diving into how sophisticated Olympus DAO is, no way they would take this shitty bridge solution. Okay, they would at least have some thought, and this one has no thoughts. So therefore, the governance need to be taken with a similar grain of salt, but we need to be potentially taking some components from it. So here, how many proposals do they really have? Well, look at this. 2025, boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, 2024, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's pretty much it. So we have 12 proposals total. Now, when Cosmos was looking at it, he found more proposals on Olympus. Like he said that it's like 300 proposals or so. And that, you know, if that's the case, that's the case, right? The ones I'm seeing here is 300. I could be wrong. We have some contract parameters here, which kind of, you know, do make sense. But like it's not kind of let me be real. Olympus was Olympus in 2021. By 2024, that's pretty much it. Like even by 2023, that was it. Like 2021 was the year of Olympus, and a little bit of 2022. These ones from 2024. What I'm trying to say is bonds and all the other things. While the governance was there, we believe that all the bonds have been just made out by the admin, by a single person, potentially Zeus himself. Well, maybe not. Maybe Zeus did not like how to say like personally put them in, right? And that's why he, I think, disappeared from from this planet just to make sure he doesn't get into any legal issues, right? Like the idea is you made the money, good, now disappear, like become quiet. Very smart idea. Like again, Zeus is super smart, right? But I don't think we shall be following that fate of kind of ghostDAO, or sorry, Olympus DAO, where bonds, APYs, and some other things have been operational things have been set by the admin, whoever that one account is. Maybe it was a multi-sig by the team, still not good, right? So what I'm trying to say is you don't see now, like here, the bonds and APYs disappeared by the 2024. I think by 2023, Olympus said no to APYs and no to bonds. They have some cooler loans and stuff, like some other cool things potentially, right? But they don't have the bonds and the APYs. The bonds and the APYs are operational in nature. What I mean by that is you need this on a daily basis. You need to vote for this on a daily fucking basis. Like, right, on the daily basis, we need to see, is the APY 69% okay? Shall we increase it to 70? Means that the DAO members, meaning ghost holders, need to be extremely active for every single DAO on every single chain. Mr. DK, let's assume you are the DAO member on Ethereum, on Ghost DAO member on Ethereum, Ghost holder on Ethereum. You need to be active for Ethereum. You need to be really fucking watching the Ethereum one daily. Ogen, let's assume you want to become a Ghost holder on Pulse. Okay, you need to be watching Pulse like a hawk. Now, the realization and the question, one of the questions on Ghost Whales that has persisted is, why do we need S Casper? And that's a great question. And to be honest, like S Casper has been deprecated on Olympus. Like they had E Casper and S Casper, and then once they created Casper, S Casper was pretty much gone. And while with the discussion yesterday with the team, we finally understood like the real meaning for S Casper and the reason why we still need it. The Casper holders create quorum. We'll cover this later today / next week. Quorum and majority vote. So therefore, any ghost holder who is inactive is significantly screwing up the governance. However, if you know for sure that you're not going to be part of the governance, but you still would like to get the staking rewards at 69%, no problem. Get S Casper and just stick to that. So let's assume you don't want to move away, you don't want to bridge, right? Let's assume you just want to stick with the given testnet, like with given ghostDAO on Ethereum. Okay, no problem. But you don't want to vote, and you don't want your holdings to impact the voting in any way. Okay, cool, no problem. Just get S Casper. You'll be getting your staking rewards, and you will not be impacting the statistic on the governance side of things. I realized this yesterday, like, wow, it's so cool. I don't think, again, Olympus didn't think about this. Like, it's just a sequence of events, like, it's just good, like, lucky things happening here and there. But had we not had S Casper, we would almost have to create it. And until yesterday, I completely was like, yeah, maybe ask Casper. Like, it's it's additional, it's kind of useless. But no, it's not, because it will be impacting the governance in a the S Casper holders will be, who know for sure that they will not be participating in the ghostDAO governance, will be significantly helping the governance. Okay, so it's a passive way of helping the governance, getting out of the way, right? So Olympus, again, clearly these ones are like CCIP bridge activation, Solana CCIP. It's either Circle or Chainlink. Like, no fucking way in Solana, no fucking way like Zeus would ever authorize this thing, like, ever. Again, you need to dive into the code base to really like kind of share the same deep thoughts that I have right now, and my thoughts are deepening every single time I'm diving deeper into the code, because like no fucking way Solana would be integrated specifically with Chainlink. Like, it's like Web 2.5 squared. Like zero fucking thought. Okay? But most importantly, these ones are not operational. These ones are just innovation. And most likely, this is innovation for the sake of innovation. What I mean by that is, like, why do you need Solana CCIP? Do you really need Olympus DAO and Solana? Like, do you know how to launch Olympus DAO and Solana? Yeah, I know you can rewrite the kind of the the smart contracts. Do you really understand the mechanics? Do you really know how to do this? Are you okay with backend stuff with DAI? Because when Olympus was launching, DAI was still decentralized. Now, again, kind of the reason why we moved to the native coin, right? Because there was massive consideration, right? Like, and what type of stablecoin are they going to be using on Solana? DAI or some like Solana-backed dollar? Right? Like, it's just, so it's innovation for the sake of innovation, just to show that we're innovating, not necessarily adding value to the protocol. Okay, what if Uniswap is different? Let's assume Olympus DAO is having some potentially shitty governance, which is not really operational, and we cannot necessarily take all of these kind of features from it. What about Uniswap? Not much better, to be honest, especially with Uniswap v4. So we know for a fact that, the kind of the old team potentially left as well, because the original team would probably not support V3 and V4, and all the GigaChats still striving for V2. In fact, V2 and ghostDAO in particular is one of the most visited websites with like pretty good sticky rates. I need to ask Cosmos to send some stats, maybe in Wales, about it, but it's pretty good. Specifically ghostDAO, and we don't know why. And we argue maybe that's because of the Uniswap, the fork of V2 that all the GigaChats need on testnets, and we don't, and kind of ghostDAO has it, and you won't be able to find Uniswap v2 forks with good interfaces on testnets. You just won't be able to find it, and that was our trick to try to get some traffic. In any case, look at this. Like, how many proposals do we have in 2025? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So less than 20. Maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not the right page. Although it's the website is vote.uniswapfoundation.org, which I found on the Uniswap page, right? So maybe that's not the right page. Why do we need to kind of look at these? Like, some of these proposals have some interesting features that we could take. Maybe some bar charts with some votings, like some timelines, like hasn't voted voters, like, has some interesting ideas that we could take. However, less than 20 proposals a year clearly means that these proposals, again, are not operational in nature. And ours have to be operational. What do I mean by this is, we will have maybe a proposal every single day. We may have a proposal every single couple of hours during the beginning of the launch. That's why the launch is so important. Because during the launch, we need to properly be setting bonds to achieve uniform distribution of Ghost. Therefore, to achieve uniform distribution of voting. We need to be properly setting APYs. And I don't know how. I have no idea yet. I have some clues, but I don't have a specific plan. So for one of the launches, as we discussed, for one of the launches of ghostDAO, me personally, I would like to launch it as if it was like mainnet, like specifically like bonds, APY changes, APY, like it has to be super fucking dynamic. And I would like to launch that with the ghostDAO governance in mind. That's going to be interesting. Okay. And that's going to be like a pickle because I'm not sure how to do this again. I would like to test this on testnet, like a real fucking test. And I don't think that Uniswap is kind of necessarily the right user interface for us to just simply copy. Because again, that stuff is not like strategic renewal of Gnosis, Linea, and Mantle deployments. Okay, cool. Congratulations. It's not operational. Like it's not like Uniswap v4 on Ethereum, for example, will depend on this proposal, right? I mean, there's some interesting things, like say move the kind of the LLCs, LPs, whatever they have, to Wyoming state, which they've done earlier last year in 2025, which is interesting. Like this is, I'm not saying it's useless, right? But it's just not operational. Like this is a mature project, which already figured out the operational side of things, got the adoption, and now they're looking more for strategic proposals. For us, we'll have lots of operational. The operational ones, therefore, need to be voted for. I do not want to have an admin deploying bonds and APYs based on some off-chain votes, since we have an on-chain opportunities. And that's going to be fucking risky. And that will require all of us to be active, right? And if we're not active, we'll be screwed. And if the current whale group is kind of, it's a good start. But if that's what we want to have at the launch, that's risk. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not even saying it's like it's not enough. It probably is enough, right? But it's just like, do the education now. Like, but you won't have time. Like a week will not educate the Pulse community, for example, or the Ethereum Classic community, or the Gnosis community about this product. They won't be able to vote day one. And we don't want them to vote day one if they only with the project for a week. They need to understand what the fuck's happening, right? So start educating yourself, start educating everybody else. Read. There's lots of information online. Do not just rely. We don't have time to publish all these articles. Like, we don't have time to publish all the docs. We do have time to publish all the Git. So the Git is there with the comments. You can see which project we kind of, you can just Google the functions, for example. And the functions will be kind of, the same between ghostDAO and other projects. And you'll see which other projects we are taking influence from. And it's easy, we're telling you. Polkadot, Olympus DAO, and on the governance side, Open Zeppelin. But Open Zeppelin is a bigger standard that Olympus and Uniswap both taken inspiration from anyways. Okay, so this is on the side of governance. I don't think I'll be able to cover much more today, but let me begin because that was not my whole presentation. Okay, so on the presentation side, so the disclaimer as usual, just read that quickly. Okay, so on the governance side of things. So do we stick to the status quo or do we innovate? And this is not innovation for the sake of innovation. Because again, on the status quo, stuff is ready. We are ready to launch. Smart contracts already freaking deployed. We just need to attach them to the user interface which we can take from Olympus, potentially fork it, or even if rebuild from scratch, it's not going to be a problem. And pretty much that's it. However, maybe we need to innovate, and why? Because these other protocols didn't really have pure Web3 on-chain governance since day one. So they use decentralization process, including Uniswap. They had a multi-sig for the team to bring a bunch of things, kind of bunch of votes, and still, by the way, bunch of votes on chain. And of course, they launched faster, and maybe they arguably got some market share. But listen, market share is easy in Web3. It's easy to take if your project is solid, because all the current solutions are crap. Most current solutions are absolute shit. So, like, if you are better than them, and you have some access to users, right, and you develop some trust with the users, I mean, I would argue it's actually quite easy to get significant market share away. I would say that Uniswap V2, state of the art. Uniswap V4 is turning into Friendster, right? And when Facebook started, they evaluated Friendster and they evaluated MySpace, and they're like, okay, we're just better than them. that's how we could get better than them, right? So it was like some, simple 1,000 small changes, thousands things that they did better. Facebook would do better than say MySpace, and boom, and Facebook is Facebook. So, um, same thing with everything we do. Like, the only solid project I would argue, well, the only two solid projects I would argue that are extremely difficult to beat would be Bitcoin and Ethereum. And luckily, we're not in the business of beating those projects. We're in the business of uniting these projects, in fact, right? Because Bitcoin is the number one massive network effect, like massive user adoption, massive trust. Um, uh, Satoshi did most of the things correct. Anonymous personality, no fucking foundations, no ICOs. Like he did a lot of things right. So perfect, like amazing, right? Another one is Ethereum, and Ethereum has massive advantage. Like it's a 10x better kind of utility compared to Bitcoin and compared to pretty much everybody else. The third one will potentially be Polkadot, but I think they just screwed up too much with fundraising. The tech is great, but on the business side, they just took advantage of how much innovation they brought in. They brought a lot of innovation, but they just screwed up. Right? Maybe we have some others, like maybe we have Cosmos to some extent, but they only have 200 validators. We have maybe Tron, but again, that's a fork. They don't have 27 validators. Um, we don't have that much innovation, like actual innovation. So what I'm trying to say is like, if we bring something better to the DAO than the existing projects, maybe like just being a little bit innovative everywhere, not for the sake of innovation, but for the sake of serving our purposes better. Maybe that way we'll be able to get the market share faster, right? Including the governance. Again, the main reason for the governance innovation is our DAO shall be operational from fucking day zero. We launch with the DAO. The DAO makes decisions. That's how I would like to launch. I don't want to have a period of like, let's launch faster for the first 3 years. The team will be, or one single address will be making all the decisions, and then decentralization is a process, and we'll figure it out because market share is important. The argument is different. Let's launch correctly from day one. That will help us get the market share, even if it requires us to delay the launch a little bit later, like another year. Okay. But again, it won't happen because, as we discussed on the call on Wales Wednesdays, we have some pretty stringent timeline now, which some of you won't like, but at least that's what we're striving for now, like the date. So let me proceed with the presentation here. So major DAOs, I showed you some of the DAOs. I would like to maybe show them in more detail maybe next week. But the most important governance backend. How do they make decisions on the backend? They use OpenZeppelin. OpenZeppelin are legends in the space, absolute legends. Nothing wrong with them. Like great teams. What about kind of the DAO principle? Step one, quorum. Quorum is how many users voted for a given proposal. However, the devil is in the details. So how the quorum evolved. So the quorum originally included everybody, those who voted for, voted against, and voted abstain. Now, those who did not vote were not part of the quorum. So you have to like physically vote abstain. Even if you are abstaining from the vote, you have to say abstain. If you did not send any vote, you are not part of the quorum. Quorum initially was calculated as those who voted against, those who voted abstain. Everybody would count towards quorum. However, and then once the minimum threshold is achieved, let's assume 40% on the quorum or 20% on the quorum, you would then kind of figure out if those who voted for, right, greater than those who voted against, the proposal goes through. If those who voted for fewer than those who voted against, then the proposal is rejected. So there has been a two-step process. However, this two-step process practically has been not working. And that was we thought that this is, so we have this in the code base already. So we can just deploy this version and that's it. But the more we thought about this, so how the process evolved? The process evolved that the quorum shall not count the against people. It would only count for and abstain. So that's how it evolved. So again, original version 4 plus abstain plus against must be above the threshold. The latest upgrade by Open Zeppelin, and therefore all the DAOs, including Uniswap and Olympus, most likely, is they only count for and abstain, those who actively vote abstain, into the threshold. They don't vote, they don't count the against ones. And that, like, once we learn this, we're like, oh shit, like, why? Why would they do that? So we still don't understand it exactly. There are some reasons. But I kind of start to feel the real reason for that, given our internal proposal. And that's what you guys, by the way, should be doing on your own. You should be learning, because this stuff is public information. You don't need to dive into the code to understand how Open Zeppelin is doing this. You just Google this up, use ChatGPT DeepSeek, they'll tell you exactly kind of why. They'll even try to explain it to you. I'm still not fully understanding it. However, maybe the best explanation for and abstain about the threshold would be based on the vote proposal number 6 vote, which was the first vote suggested by the community. It was suggested, it was abused significantly. We can look at the history in Wales, how that proposal 6 went. But essentially, lots of users who were unaffiliated with the Ghost project have been voting for that given proposal. And let's assume the threshold is 20%. So 20% of all the users must vote for and abstain and against. And let's assume the group, malicious group, has access to 15% of the threshold. In that case, you have a game theoretical type of voting. So the vote ends, let's assume, within a week. Okay? And 15% of those malicious users will vote for a malicious proposal. Malicious proposal could incorporate something like all the treasury funds from ghostDAO need to go to us, right, to a given wallet. Those 15% of wallets support it. So they're only 50%. But given the fact that the rest is inactive, like nobody gives a shit. Like lots of these people just hold, I don't know, DAO to Ghost token just for the price appreciation and not for anything else, they would not vote. In that case, 15% of people would vote for. And now it's a game theory. So you have only a week for this proposal to either be approved or rejected. But the threshold of 20% is not achieved yet. But as a person who clearly sees that this is a malicious group, you want to vote against. But if you're going to be voting against, you will be potentially adding to the threshold. So what could happen is, like, I'm against, Mr. Educate, you're against, Ojin, you're against, right? We hold 5%. So, and then let's assume somebody else, like Prime. Prime would be also against. But we cannot get to him. He's not, whatever. He's sick. He's not participating in the group for whatever reason. So the question is like, okay, 3 of us will vote 5% against. But then we need to organize other people also to vote against, to clearly have more than 15% to vote against. However, if only 5% of us vote for it, then it's 15% of the malicious group plus 5%, that's 20%, the threshold is achieved. And if we fail as those who vote against to attract other people who vote against, then we screwed, right? Because we essentially helped the malicious group to achieve the threshold. Without us, they would not be able to achieve the threshold. Now, why can't we just wait and not vote? Why can't we just, okay, like Mr. DK, myself, Mr. DK, and OJ, we have 5%. We just wait. We just not vote again. Like, we know we have 5%. We know we are active. We definitely can vote, but we're not going to help them. But then that's a game theory threat and fear. We're like, okay, those who are for, what if they have more than 15%? What if they have 16%? In dynamic, it actually will look even scarier. The proposer may put 5% vote, and then every single day there's like plus another 0.1, plus another 0.1%, plus another 0.1%, plus another 0.1%. And by the time it's 15%, the dynamic's like, oh shit, these fuckers can actually get to the 20% themselves. We should absolutely right away start voting against. Why? Because if we're voting against, other people who also want to vote against, we'll see that there are more people who are against. So kind of our consideration will be, oh, like other people, like we need to be the first ones to vote against so other people can also see that we are against so they can also vote against. However, if it's only 5% of us, we just help the threshold to get passed. So it's a game theory play. And that's why it seems like that's why the against vote has been removed from the threshold. Right? So it's a very like psychological, like very game theoretic type of consideration as opposed to like, technical consideration. Because in this case, if it's just for and abstain, I can vote against Mr. K, you can vote against Ojin, you can vote against. We are kind of portraying to the world that we are 5% against without helping the malicious proposal go through. But again, why the fuck would the against people not be counted in the quorum? What type of discrimination is that? If I'm against, why am I not part of the quorum? I am absolutely part of the quorum. Just because other against people are not active, nobody's fucking problem. The idea is if you are a ghost holder, you need to vote. If you are a uni holder, you need to vote. If you are an OHM, a GOM holder, you need to vote in the Olympus, right? So there has been a protection against like super weak quorums and participation. So based on DeepSeek, whatever DeepSeek told me, whether this is true or false, like the Aave, Aave Olympus, Aave Uniswap, and they used another DAO. Only 10% or so of holders are active. That's the stats. Whether to believe this or not, I need to do more research. That what kind of the AI told me. All the stats they give typically need to be taken with a grain of salt. But that's kind of, I'm just kind of, don't shoot the messenger, right? That's what it said. I didn't do more research. And of course, because of that, now opens up and like, okay, let's like protect, not against like unfair voting, but let's protect against inactive voting. And that's what we have. This implementation, what we have currently. And the question is, shall we innovate from here or not? Okay, so this is the two-step process. So let me cover this process in more detail next week and essentially see how we could change this and innovate using what Polkadot took and just recode that on kind of from Rust onto Solidity into the smart contract. The team likes the Polkadot version a lot more. Me personally, I like it also more. However, we need to customize it because Polkadot has certain details on the chain side that we cannot fully integrate into the smart contract side of things because it's a dApp. So therefore, we need to innovate a little bit more with a little bit of details here and there. But overall, that's the discussion. Please start learning more. Ask questions. Don't ask. Well, ask any questions, obviously, right? But like, the best questions are the educated questions, like meaning there are no stupid questions, but they're unprepared questions. So start a little bit of Open Zeppelin, start a little bit of Olympus, start a little bit of Uniswap, start a little bit of Aave, and then like try to figure out like, are you okay with this governance? And again, if you just go with the governance is fucking done. Boom, it's done. It's already done. Anybody can launch the stuff. Ghost also done. The initial version done, so stuff can be deployed. Question is, do we need to innovate? And then if the team is the only team kind of, substance, instance, whatever, group that helps innovate, then of course the innovation is a little bit slower as opposed to the entire group helping out. And the best proof of that is Proposal 9, where one of the community members suggested Ghost Connect name. I know it's a teeny tiny, not unimportant change, but it's a massive change because we didn't think about Ghost Connect on the team level. That's why it was not part of the multiple choice. Ghost Connect was purely like a community-driven innovation. Tiny doesn't freaking matter. It's amazing. And that's going to be the name Ghost Connect. Once we get to the Ghost extension, we're going to rename it to Ghost Connect as portrayed by Proposal 9. On this note, thank you so much. How many people listen to us? That's actually curious. 4 people. Well,